Hey, so today we're going to talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome, also known as PTSD or PTS for short. So, post-traumatic stress syndrome is basically something that a lot of people have, and it's really just in short terms, it's just trauma. So, if you feel like you have trauma, if you feel like you've been through a traumatic experience, then you may have some form, it could be a small, minor form of PTSD. So, PTSD, it's basically the way that we respond to triggers that, to triggers that remind us of our trauma. So, let's just say you went through an issue where your parents got divorced, or maybe you guys had to move out and you didn't have a place to live for a while, or maybe you lost, a relative. Sometimes that trauma, the stress and psychological disorder that you went through during that phase, you know, um, it's a phase of healing. It's what it is, grief, right? When you go through something traumatic, you have some grief. Sometimes you may have some shame, you may have some guilt, just overall sadness, right? From an experience. And the PTSD comes in after the experience. That's why it's called post, because when words have pre in the beginning of it, it means it's before the word. When it's post, it means it's afterwards, after the actual event. So you might get these days later, months later, sometimes years later, you'll come across a situation where you get triggered by it. It doesn't always happen right away. Sometimes it can happen down the road later on in your life, right? Like maybe something happened to you when you were 5 years old and your experience post-traumatic stress syndrome at the age of 15 because those same experiences or that same energy or situation has followed you, and now you feel like you're back in that place and time, having to deal with the same forces that were really just damaging you back in the past. Okay, so now that I've explained PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, probably 80% of you already realize that you might have some form of trauma from some bad experience that you had in your past. The only way, there's lots of ways to heal stuff like this, but the first step is really, realizing the patterns, realizing, that you're reacting to something that you have had reacted to in the past, whether you reacted to it differently this time or whatever. You're basically just learning how to deal with situations like this, and you have to learn how to deal with them better and better so that if it ever comes across you again, it doesn't phase you, it doesn't damage you, it doesn't make you feel bad, sad, guilty, shameful. So whatever you went through, whatever that event was, you need to heal from that experience by reflecting on that event, understanding what you could have controlled, what you could not have controlled, and moving past that, and, coming into your future with a new outlook, a more clearer outlook on life, on how to do things, how you're going to handle yourself, what things you're going to say, what things you're not going to say, all of that stuff of like repairing your bad habits and social skills, fixing them in order to have better experiences in your future. So post-traumatic stress syndrome is not a bad thing. It's something that it is just in human nature. It's a part of our healing process of how we have to learn and how we have to grow past certain things. Like even the most horrible things that have happened to us, whether it be torture, whether it be like someone putting you in a situation that you couldn't get yourself out of, that was out of your control, you felt taken advantage of. Even things like that, they're bad in those moments when we're experiencing them, when we're feeling powerless. But they are there to make you a stronger person. Personally, in my experiences, there was a huge event that I had a year ago that really, it really tired me out mentally for a few months. Like, I had to step back and I had to recover and recuperate from the experiences I had, from being taken advantage of, from, being tortured, like just different things, being gaslighted. Stuff like that went on, and I had to move past that. Like I had to just, first of all, hold on to myself and love myself and realize that, it's not that, oh, what did I do to deserve this? It's more so like, what is this trying to teach me? What is this trying to show me? you know, how can I be better from this? How can I be a better person after this? Like, how can I help others so it doesn't happen to them, so they can prevent this from happening to them as well? So it really taught me how to become a better teacher. It really taught me how to become a better mother. It really taught me how to be more careful in my social circles and just the kind of stuff that you put out there, right? So the things that you say and the way that you act and how you're perceived by other people, all of that stuff matters, you know. I always say be 100% honest. If you can be an honest person, if you can be transparent and not be someone that tries to hide stuff and tries to manipulate people, then you'll only see more blessings in your future. Maybe not immediately, you're not going to immediately get some satisfaction out of being a good person, but down the road, those kinds of acts add up, right? Like good karma and stuff like that. Doing good deeds and doing good towards others. So I'm just like, I really, really hate being in situations where people lie and where they're manipulating others and where they're taking advantage of people in power and situations. I really don't do well in those situations, but I've learned to walk away from them and not throw fuel in the fire, right? Not stir the pot, not make things a bigger deal than they are. Just walk away from circles that are toxic to you, right? From people that are toxic, from people that are just liars and manipulators. So yes, and if you've ever been that person, it's not a bad thing. If you've manipulated people, if you've lied and you've done stuff that you're ashamed of, that doesn't make you a bad person. You know, I've forgiven so many people and still, you know, love people around me that have done bad things to me. But you have to just learn how to grow past that and accept, you know, if you've ever hurt someone, if you've ever manipulated anybody, if you've ever lied into, you know, a grand story, accept those things and learn from them and move on and just try to change and be a better person, because it really lifts everybody around you when you try to become a better person and do good for others, opposed to when you're just someone who uses people and manipulates them and makes them feel bad. Nobody wants to be around you. Nobody wants to be around that. Nobody wants to be around someone who's always sad and always trying to make, you know, a pity out of a party. So that's why these things, post-traumatic stress syndrome, anxiety, feeling like someone is out to get you, you have to let go of those fears. Those are just fears. If you think that people are out to get you, if you feel like you're being manipulated, if you feel like, you know, unsafe in your environment, those are fears and those are factors to actually pay attention to. Do you need to get out of your current situation? Do you need to do something else? Get yourself out of it, move forward, move up, and walk away from a situation, right? Next, like, what can you do to surround yourself with better energy, to improve yourself, to be more happier? Because if you're always down in the dumps and, you know, you don't do anything about it, people also don't want to be around that, because they just feel drained from your energy, from your constant worries, from your constant excuses, from your constant negative energy. So you have to heal these fears and these bad thoughts that you have in your mind. And by healing them, it's just mostly reassuring yourself, because you can't always look for other people to reassure you and to make you feel better. You have to do that for yourself most of the time, especially when you get through really hard situations. You're going to learn that maybe one or two people will be there for you, but you really have to be there for yourself. You always have to be there for yourself, and don't give up on yourself, and trust yourself. Because I, like in that situation where I told you where I was being gaslighted and, you know, manipulated, I had to trust myself. I was really losing a grip on who I was and what my purpose was and what I was meant to do and my strength and my power. I lost a grip of that. I lost a hold of that. And it was turning itself around on me. Like, it was, you know, I was battling that energy. And I feel like at the end I won, because I didn't give up on myself. You know, you have to, if you really want to win, if you feel like you're losing, if you feel like you're losing, you have to do what you can to win yourself, right? I'm not talking about a competition. I'm not talking about, you know, some rivalry. I'm talking about the battle within yourself. You know, negative forces that you have that are around you, quote unquote, they're really inside of you. Bad thoughts, things that you are afraid of, those are fears you create inside of yourself, and you have to pull yourself out of them. And by that, like I said, not giving up on yourself, loving yourself enough to just stick with it. There are always going to be bad days. There's always going to be hard times and bad more future bad events and traumas to experience. And you have to remember in those darkest moments when you feel like this is just not what I want to do anymore and I can't do this anymore. In those moments, don't give up on yourself, because you'll see a day later, a week later, a year later, you're going to be looking back at it and be like, wow, like, gosh, it was just a tough time and I just got through it. So don't give up on yourself when it feels like it's getting rough, it's getting tough. Don't give up on yourself. Always find, a lighthouse, whether that be a person, whether you have some kind of totem or some kind of symbolic thing at home, or a person that makes you feel stable again. Always have something like that around you, and be aware of how those tools can help you. So post-traumatic stress syndrome, the signs that you have them, sorry that it took me so long to just break down the signs, is like things like paranoia, when you feel like people are out to get you, when you feel like no one's in your corner, everybody's against you, you're the only one that, and stuff like that. The paranoia can come from things like smoking weed, from watching too much dark stuff online. You don't have to do that all day, every day. You don't have to spread like messages of like, how there's a lot of propaganda sometimes. You don't have to keep on putting yourself in those situations, because if you can't control it and if it doesn't like directly affect your life, chances are you shouldn't be worried about it. You need to fix something that's really affecting your life, that's around your circle, that's something that you can control. So yeah, being paranoid, feeling like people are out to get you, having a really strong fear within you that stops you from doing things, that stops you from connecting with people. It really isolates you. You push yourself away and say that you want to just be alone. All that kind of stuff. PTSD also could be depression. But PTSD is when you're actually reacting to something that you have experienced in your past. So like you went through a situation, it's coming up again in a similar person or similar form. And once again, you're reacting in the same way that you have in the past. That in turn didn't heal or didn't fix anything, right? It just kind of created more fear within you. And you want to avoid that kind of thing. Other things that you might have PTS is just anxiety, right? Just having anxiety attacks. Anxiety is really just fear. It really is just fear. So when you have a strong fear of something, it's also anxiety. And the reaction from the fear that you have is the anxiety itself. So you have a fear, and your reaction to it, whether it be anxiety attacks, panic attacks, blacking out, whether it be cutting yourself, whether it be hurting yourself, hurting other people, screaming, yelling, pushing, things like that. The reaction, what you actually do, the verb, is the anxiety that you're getting from the fear that you have. So your fears, you have to conquer them. You have to face them. You have to understand, what things can kill you and what things are not going to kill you just because you face it, just because you leveled up to it. Other, signs that you might have this is just like where you have hypervigilance. That's a big one. So hypervigilance is when you're just constantly like, what is that word? Like, zoning and like scanning the area for danger or fear. That is the biggest, sign that you have post-traumatic stress syndrome, is that you feel unsafe and you're scanning your environment. You're triggered by the environment, you're triggered by the fear, and you're scanning around to see if you see anything similar to your trauma that you've experienced, if there's any patterns. So that's basically it. There's a few more, but I really wanted to break down and talk about like what PTSD is and what it can do to you as a person, how it can actually harm you, and it can create and manifest a lot of like stuff around you that you don't have to be manifesting. You could be manifesting better situations of growth and triumph, instead of like staying in that vibration of fear down there and just always like expecting something bad to happen, right? So I just wanted to put that out there, especially for people who were like going down rabbit holes that, they're great to kind of expand your mind on how real this world can be, and how raw it can be, but it definitely can be harmful to your psyche. So beware of that. Take care of yourself, love yourself, don't give up on yourself. And I hope that this video helped you in some type of way. Go ahead and leave a comment if you liked.